So Salim and Jess, from a professional investor perspective, do entrepreneurs get points for being successful at crowdsourcing or trying to use crowdsourcing? Does it matter to you?
I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have to look at, I think, what kind of business you're trying to build, and then based on that, the type of investors or the type of sources of funding that you go after. I mean, I think conceptually, crowdfunding is a good thing from the standpoint that the more people that know about your business or project and that care about it, the more likely you are to be successful. Now, it depends how much they care about it. If they care enough to discuss it with others and to spread the word, then it's valuable. I mean, that's why when you look at, I would call that an innovation in funding for digital media and IT companies over the past few years, the accelerator movement. So groups like Y Combinator, which were the first one, Techstars, Seedcamp. We now have two very active ones in Canada, Grow Labs in Vancouver, and we run one in Montreal called Founder Fuel.
Right.
And the whole purpose of those I mean, it's not crowdfunding, it's microfunding. So,
maybe can you explain the process?
The concept, sure. So basically, the way it works is there's a call for applications. So entrepreneurs submit an application. It's web-based, so everyone fills out the same one. And the prize is $25,000 in exchange for a small percentage of your company. Like in the Founder Fuel's case, it's 6%. I think Y Combinator is 8%. And you come in to a specific location. You spend 3 months, and over the course of those 3 months, I mean, the program varies from group to group, but you get access to a lot of people, mentors, advisors, experts in all aspects of building a business.
Right.
And then at the end of the program, there's a demo day where you get up on stage. There's hundreds of people in the room, most of them investors, and you pitch to them to get your next round. So in the case of our program, it's very mentor-driven. So as you come in, a week into the program, there's a mentor day where you meet 100 people. So over the course of that day, you'll sit across the table from 100 people that you'll spend 40 minutes with. That at the end of it, will know exactly what you're doing. They'll know who you are, and some of them will take that with them, and then become another node in your network to help you build your business. So that's crowdfunding, I think, can be great in the sense that you have a lot of people that touch you. Now, the connection is money-driven, which in most times when people write a check, they expect something in return. The mentor program is different. They don't expect any money. And then you can be in a situation, I don't know if this applies in when you make movies and stuff, but where people, like, even though they only gave you $20, they'll want to call you, they want to talk to you, they want to email you, they want to know what's going on. And that can become a huge problem to manage. I mean, that's another thing we tell entrepreneurs, and this problem applies to raising an angel round. I mean, if you raise an angel round with 15 different angels, that write you a $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 checks, a lot of them will call you and say, so how's my money doing, right? Yeah. And that's a huge problem when you're in a startup and you're trying to build a business, to have to manage that process on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis. Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's interesting is, raising money is very sexy from the outside.
Yes.
The hunt and the success. But once you raise the money, the problem is that you get guys like JS are basically, you got to have meetings with them and you got to give them update reports and they want to see progress. And that in and of itself is, you're managing your business, but you're also managing your investors at the same time.
So it's very important to look at the fundraising process, except for something like crowdfunding, you're looking for partners, and you need to know who you're dealing with and how they work. You need to talk to people they've worked with in the past to make sure that there's an alignment of interest and a vision and values.
So Salim, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think I had a very interesting perspective on sort of the funding ecosystem when I was running and building a company called B5 Media. We were a content company, a publisher. We would create lifestyle content. We had a group of about 300 bloggers who would create fantastic content. We grew the audience to about 10 million uniques, focused largely on the US marketplace. And we needed a round of funding, and we'd go to the venture capital community. This, again, was back in 2006, 2007. And no one understood media. The investors were used to funding software companies or companies where people were paying a license for a service, but they didn't understand the value of an audience. They didn't understand the value of advertising dollars. They were worried that, what happens if all your your viewership leaves tomorrow? What am I left with as an investor? And so, I still see that today. I still see, really interesting companies sometimes struggle to get momentum with traditional venture firms because, they're so focused on interactive media and content. And we had to go to the U.S. to go and raise our funding because they were much more comfortable with audience and ad models and those sorts of things. But it can sometimes be a challenge, when you're building a publishing company, when you're building an interactive game, for example, and you're trying to go through traditional routes. The companies that I've seen do really well have in Canada, aligned themselves with, very experienced angel investors who come from the media space, who understand the value of audience, who understand the value of ad channels and ad relationships, and those are the kinds of partnerships that help those very young companies, through those early stages. You've got a company like, for example, here in Toronto, a company like Anpop, who does fantastic work in the youth segment, building interactive content, and has been at it for a while and has slowly built up a fantastic audience. And it's a great example of a venture that is outside of the norm of what traditional VCs would like to fund or are used to funding. But I think we'll start to see more of those types of opportunities. Certainly as mobile grows and mobile gaming grows, I think we're finding fantastic entrepreneurs and skill sets in that world. And so it'll be interesting to see, I think, how well the overlap will be between the interactive media world and the venture world and the types of momentum that those types of projects will get.
Stephanie?
Well, I mean, certainly as far as the idea that, once you give the money and people want to have that contact with you, I think that does apply with crowdfunding, but I think it's actually advantageous with crowdfunding in that sense that it's very short-sighted to look at crowdfunding as just a way to get money for your project. Because really what you're doing is you're building your networks and you're building your super fans. You're building advocates for your content that you're creating. These are going to be the first people to come and see your film, to come and listen to your band, to buy your album, to do all of these things. And not only that, they now feel, even though they don't have ownership, they feel a sense of ownership over that. And they're going to be really proud, and they're going to tell all of their friends, and they're going to become your advocates and spread the word for you. So though you might get bogged down in that correspondence with them, it's actually a huge advantage to you to really take advantage of that, to promote it and to build that relationship. Because if you have them committed to you, they're going to be committed to you through your entire career.
So Andrew, what's, in terms of your practice, do accelerators come into play at all in terms of, do you direct them to accelerators? Is this part of your ecosystem these days?
Yeah, and maybe I can just comment on the crowdsourcing model. I think it's very, very important currently because it's providing funding for the most difficult portion of growth to finance from a banking perspective, the development cost, the upfront cost. So I think that's definitely a benefit in the ecosystem these days. And on the incubator side, absolutely, understanding who is active in the space and who has had success in a similar subsector, I think that's an incredible amount of value that we can say, there's someone else in the same market, and quite often these companies aren't speaking to one another, and just putting them in contact is of great value.
You raised incubators, and when JNS, we were talking before, there's a difference between an incubator and an accelerator. And incubators are these weird beasts right now because they seem to be popping up here, there, and everywhere. Everybody suddenly is an incubator. You've got some extra space and you want to get some companies in there. I'm not sold on the concept, to be honest. I think there's some good ones and there's a lot of bad ones. And what's your view on this?
The main difference that I see between incubators and accelerators is that incubators are about taking a project and building walls around it, support walls around it, until it gets to a certain stage where it's ready to go into the world. And in my view, that's the old model of building companies, when it costs a lot more money to build them, and where before you went out, you had to build a base. Mm-hmm. And today, it's so easy to start a company that what you need is a way to give people access to resources and then see who makes it. Like who so you let people compete, like cooperation and competition. So in an accelerator model, most of them will take a class of 10 to 15 projects at the same time, and all these people get access to the same resources, and it's their responsibility to make the most of the experience and to reach out to people. And so over the course of a program, some of them will start progressing much faster than the others because they're more active, they work harder, their concept is more interesting, whatever the reason is. But and from day one to the end day, the demo day, there's a huge difference. And those are the ones that will get the funding and where all the investors and they get access. So I think that the accelerator model from that standpoint is better. It's also better because it's focused on helping the best, but it's also focused on helping the individuals, the entrepreneurs, become better entrepreneurs, become leaders. So the economics of it, like an accelerator, in our case, for example, we take 6% of common shares in a deal. So the program itself loses money. It doesn't make money. But if an incubator is usually structured as a profit center for the people that are running it, which changes the economics, it will usually take much more equity in a company. So after that initial phase, the entrepreneur is left with much less of the company than he would. So it's a different angle. Incubators I view as more money-making machines for the people who run the incubators, and accelerators are more platforms to help entrepreneurs get a better start.
Well, so Salim, so you got there's a lot of news about new accelerators and new incubators, particularly in Toronto these days. So what advice do you give people in the audience who have their entrepreneurs or their startups, they have a gaming startup, and they hear about all these accelerators and incubators? What advice do you give them in terms of how do they explore them? How do they figure out who's any good?
Sure.
How do they make a decision about who to go with?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is talk to people who have come out of those programs, understand how valuable the experience was, and what the different types of value were that were provided to them, whether it was technology value or partnership value or recruiting value. I think those are all really interesting things that an accelerator can bring to a young company. And then when trying to decide between whatever path you go through, I think it's always important to remember that choosing a funding partner is like choosing a business partner when you're building your business. And they've got to have the same vision, the same excitement, the same values as you to be able to help you grow your business. And so I think you have to look at not only how big a check they can write, but the personalities that are there, the resources that you'll get access to, and understand, are these the type of people that are going to help me day in, day out build my company and understand what I want to do. And so for me, I think those are really important questions to consider.